Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Welcome back to my channel if you've seen any of my videos before. I haven't really uploaded any content lately. It's been a couple of months. It's summer, I've had time, but I don't know, I guess I've been doing other stuff. But summer is almost over, school year is about to start, and I figured this would be a good time for me to film this video. If you already read the title, which you did because you're here, it's why I quit teaching. However, I didn't quit education. I'm still in education. I work in education. I just quit teaching. I'm not in the classroom with a group of students full time. And this wasn't an easy decision. It's not a decision that I took lightly. I went to school for this. I have a bachelor's, I got a master's in education. It's not a decision that I made overnight. It's something that I gave a lot of thought to. And ultimately, I decided that for me, it's not the best thing to be in the classroom. And I'm just going to say why. And I know many of the reasons that I'm going to give resonate with a lot of other teachers. I've heard from friends and just from people in social media interacting in different blogs and forums how teaching is becoming such a bad profession that the turnover in teachers is insane. Insane. When I had my last teaching job, I think my students hadn't had a stable teacher throughout their whole maybe elementary experience. I think there was a lot of turnover since they were in third, fourth grade, I think, and I was their teacher in middle school, so it started in elementary. So there's a lot of turnovers for teachers, and I know that happens a lot in high school. I have teacher friends that are in high school, and they've told me the same thing. There's so much turnover, teachers transferring schools, teachers that just don't want to do it anymore and they just quit altogether, teachers that middle of the school year leave. So I just wanted to give the reasons why I quit teaching and why so many teachers are quitting this profession. They're transitioning into different jobs outside the classroom because it's a job that's really, really demanding. Now, before I go on, if you want to subscribe to my channel, give a like to this video if you agree with anything or if you like it, I don't know. And yeah, let's get started. So I know many people think teachers and they think it's all fun and games. And it's, oh, you get to be in a classroom all day with kids that are sitting, you can sit down, you just give them a little bit of work, and that's it. You don't have to do anything else. And you get Christmas off, and you get Thanksgiving off, and you get 2 months off in the summer, and you get spring break off, and the weekends, you never work during the weekends, and you're off by 3. You have so much time being a teacher. It's great. It's not. One of the main downfalls of being a teacher is the schedule. You would think, oh, you have the perfect schedule, 8 to 3, that's it. That's not it. So being a teacher, yes, you have to be in school during the school hours. So technically you have to be there 8 to 3. A lot of schools start earlier, so you have to be there earlier, and you never leave at 3. So most schools do dismissal and it ends, most schools end before 3. High schools usually end before 3. But as teachers, you tend to stay in the school until 3:15, 3:30, sometimes 4. Now, we usually arrive at the school half an hour before. My last experience was different. I had an insanely long commute. I had to commute for 55 miles, and with traffic that translated to an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours. If there was ever an accident, 3 hours. It was crazy. But for most teachers, they arrive. So yeah, I said that because so I would arrive to the school sometimes like an hour and a half before school actually started, but it was because I had that crazy commute and I couldn't afford to be late. But many teachers, even though they usually live close to the school, they like to arrive half an hour, sometimes an hour before. So we have to make copies. We have to make sure that we have copies for the students of whatever it is that we're doing that day. We have to make sure we answer emails. If we have to send emails to parents, if parents sent us emails during the night, if our supervisor sent us emails, we want to take care of that before the day starts. We want to make sure that once the day starts and once we're teaching, we don't have to interrupt the teaching to tend to our emails. So usually we're in school before classes start, getting copies, making sure the lessons and everything is in order, making sure the PowerPoint is in order, it works, the projector works, the computer works, the TV works, and making sure we have breakfast, we have coffee, we have tea, whatever it is that we need to get us through the beginning of the school day. So no, our day doesn't begin at 8. It usually begins at 7, sometimes before 6:30 that we're in the classroom. And once classes are over, like I said, there's dismissal, but then we usually end up staying afterwards to clean the classroom, to make sure that I don't know, the desks are clean, that if we have grading to do and you don't want to take your grading home, you stay in the classroom and you do the grading in the classroom. And most teachers have a total of, well, it depends. If you teach one subject but you teach multiple grades or multiple classrooms, you have, let's say you teach 4 ninth grade classes of English. That's, let's say it's ideal and you have 20 students per classroom, you would have 80 students, so that's 80 essays that you have to grade. If you're a teacher that teaches one grade and you do all the subjects, and let's say you have 20 students, then you have 20 assignments for social studies and 20 assignments for math and 20 assignments for ELA and 20 assignments for science. So there's a lot of grading. It doesn't matter if you just do one subject or if you do multiple subjects in one grade. There's a lot of grading, and it usually takes more than 1 hour. It takes like 2-3 hours depending on your pace and the type of assignment. So even though a lot of people say that our schedule is like ideal, it's really not. Usually teachers end up taking a lot of the work home. At least I was the type of person that I never stayed in the school to grade, so I took a lot of things home. So I get home and you're like, okay, you're home, you can do whatever you want. Well, not really, because now I have to spend like 3 hours grading. Also, there's a lot of extracurricular things that go on in the weekends and after school, and teachers don't necessarily have to go to those events, but there's gonna be a lot of frowning and criticizing and judging if you don't. Mind you, I used to work at a place. I had a job and I was really spoiled at that job. Everything was so ideal, so perfect, and I just had to leave for circumstances that weren't under my control. They weren't under the control of where I worked. Just I had to leave. But if I could go back, I would go back. But then I was in a place where, another job where I couldn't afford to go to all the extracurricular events and stay after school and get involved in a lot of things, and I thought that was fine. And it wasn't until after I finished working that apparently I found out that it was an issue, that I wasn't staying for those things. So that's why I'm saying there's a lot of extracurricular activities and things that go on the weekends that take all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and things that go on after school from like 5 to 8, 6 to 9, that teachers don't have to go. But if you don't go, it's a little bit of judging and criticizing, like, oh, you're not as involved as you should be, you're not doing as much as you should be doing for the school community. And So there's all of this going on. Like, we're in the classroom, we have to teach. It's 8 hours that we're there. We go home, we have to grade papers that usually takes 2-3 hours. We also have to prep, and the average teacher gets like an hour a day to prep, an hour, 2 hours a day to prep. That's not enough. And you might say, well, you have 2 hours during the whole day for you to prep a class. How hard can that be? Well, you're not just prepping one class, you're prepping multiple classes. Now, I used to have a job where I only taught one subject. I have different classes, but it was one subject. It was the same subject. That's ideal. That's perfect, because you plan one, and even because no class is the same. So even if you had to change or modify the activities, the lesson, the content, it was the same. But I also had jobs, like I had a job where I was in different grades. I was in like 3 or 4 different grades, and that was horrible. Like, there's so much different planning for each grade. And then I was in a job where, but that was the same content, the same, not content, the same subject. So it was still kind of easy because you're teaching the same subject. I was in another job where I was teaching different subjects, different grades. And that was really hard because each class is different. Each class has its own personality, but each group has basically the same layout. And I'm just going to show you a picture of what a typical class looks like. Now, let's say this is the class. This line is the class. And let's say this is 5th grade. This is 5th grade. And you have students all along. You are going to have students that are in 3rd grade. You are going to have students that are in 7th grade level. And then you're going to have students that are in 5th grade level. I don't know if you probably are reading this backwards. But anyways, when you have a class, you have students that are at the grade level, you have students that are below grade level, and you have students that are above grade level, meaning that when teachers plan, one plan for one class is not enough. And it is necessary, like in our lesson plans, it's necessary for us to have differentiated learning. That means we have to include the alternatives for the students that are above and the students that are below. And each class is about 45 minutes long. So we have 45 minutes to do 3 lessons for 3 different types of kids to get them all to a certain level. So we need to do a very basic activity for the kids that are below, and grade appropriate activity for the kids that are at grade level, and then an advanced activity for the kids that are above. So those are 3 different lesson plans that we have to do for one class, for one day. But you don't teach just one class. You teach 3-4 classes. So if you teach 4 classes, multiply that by 3, that's 12 different lesson plans in one day. 12 times 5, that's what, 60? 12 times 5, that's 60. So that's 60 different, sorry, my phone went off. That's 60 lesson plans a week. 60. For the teachers that do one grade, all the contents, that's social studies, ELA, math, science, social study, ELA, math, science. I feel like I'm forgetting something. ELA is usually 2 different, like there's literature, there's writing, grammar. So yeah, it's 4, 5 different classes that you have to multiply times 3, because there's essentially 3 different lesson plans per class. How long does each lesson take to plan? It can take half an hour, 40 minutes, 12 different lessons a day. That's 6 hours of planning. Wait, 6? Yeah, 6. 6 hours of planning. And I'm not a math teacher, but I'm pretty sure it's 6. So we're in school 8 hours. We get there an hour before, that's 9. We stay an hour later, that's 10. We wake up an hour before we're at work, that's 11. It takes us an hour to get to work, that's 12. We already have 12 hours of our day taken up. Now, to those 12 hours, sum up 2 hours that we spend grading. That's 14 hours. We have 10 hours left. If we do the lesson planning, the 12 lessons that take us half an hour, that's going to leave us with, 4 hours to sleep? If we were at 10 minus 6, 4 hours to sleep, that's impossible. Like, when do we eat? When do we cook? When do we work out? When do we go to the grocery store? When do we have a life? When do we go to the post office? When do we go to a mall? When do we go to movies? In the weekends? Okay, let's say, in the weekends. But then in the weekends, we have to do a whole lot of other grading. And if we want to be on top of things adequately, then we do all of the lesson planning in the weekend. But if we do all of the lesson planning in the weekends, that's 6 times 5. I went through this. No, I didn't. Yeah, that's 6 hours of lesson planning a day. There's 5 days a week. 6 times 5, that's 30. 30 hours of planning a weekend. That's impossible. That's an impossible amount of time to spend. Like, you can't expect teachers to spend that much time planning. So one of the main reasons, one thing that really got to me, was the lack of work-life balance. It's almost non-existent. There's so much that you have to do, that you have to plan to make sure that the kids are truly getting all that they can get out of the content. And add to that you're always going to have kids with disabilities that you have to take into account when you're planning for them. You have to take into account the kids' learning style. So you're going to have kids that are very visual. You're going to have kids that get everything through reading. You're going to have kids that, they need project-based learning. They have to be very hands-on doing. And you have to plan for each kid. I've had kids who I can give them a book, read it, take this test, and they get 100. And I've had kids who that doesn't work for them at all. I've had kids where I need to make them do something, because if I give them something to write, I give them a multiple choice test, they are going to fail. And I know it, and it's not fair to judge all kids equally. So then we have to differentiate the learning for each kid in the classroom. And ideally, you have a classroom with 20 students, but that almost never happens. You get classes with 30, 35 students. That's insane. The amount of work that you have to do to make sure that you're a good educator and that the kids are being set up for success. It's crazy. And then it leaves us teachers with no personal social life. We end up basically kind of drowning and burning out. Like, it gets to a point where we just can't do it anymore. On top of that, add the fact that usually there's no curriculum. The policies that the government keeps changing and updating, they have an effect on the curriculum that's used in the classroom. And when you keep changing policies, when you keep changing state standards, the book publishers, they're not going to keep up with you. They're losing money if they have to update their books and resources every year. And the schools are not going to spend that much money. Like, curriculums cost thousands of dollars, and they're not going to spend that much money on new curricula. So the last job I had, there wasn't a curriculum. One of the things I was told was there's no curriculum, you make it up. And a good thing is I'm good at it, and I like coming up with my new material, but what one teacher uses one year, they can't use the next. And it's not because they don't want to, it's because no group is the same. So you're gonna find that, yeah, some activities do fit in and you can use it the next year, but most of it, it won't be transferable. And you're gonna have to start from scratch. So, to all that planning and differentiating that teachers have to do for their kids, add to that the fact that there's usually not a good common core state aligned curricula. Teachers have to come up with a lot of the materials, and it's constantly changing, and we're constantly updating what we use. And thank God for teachers pay teachers, because it's a freaking lifesaver. And so, yeah, we have to take into account all of that. There's the schedule, which we really don't have a perfect schedule. It's not an ideal schedule. We have almost no personal social life, and a lot of the work that should stay at school ends up going home with us. We are expected to participate in a lot of after school activities, even when we don't have the time, because if we don't, then it's like, oh, you're not getting involved in the community, you're not doing your best. We have to struggle with class sizes, with the curriculum. We have to struggle with planning for kids that are below grade level, above grade level, kids who have disabilities. We have to deal with group dynamics, and while we're doing all of this, we have to get our students ready for the standardized exams. And it's a shame that a lot of the teachers' work is assessed through the students' results in the standardized exams. I don't know. I think it's insane that that's the way things are done. Like, I understand there should be a tool to assess where students are at, but using standardized exams to evaluate teachers and how well teachers are doing their jobs, that is not realistic. Like, it's not realistic at all. You can't expect teachers to differentiate learning, telling us you have to differentiate your learning because not every kid learns the same, not every kid test takes the same, not every kid is at the same level, and then give a kid a standardized exam, all the same format, and then evaluate us on that. Like, what are you doing? You're telling us not every kid test takes the same, differentiate, but then you're assessing kids the same way, and then you're evaluating us on the way they do on those tests, knowing damn well that there's a lot of students that are terrible test takers, especially when they're under time. I'm a great student. I graduated my master's with a 4.0. I graduated my bachelor's magna cum laude. I'm a horrible standardized test taker. Terrible. Like, I don't do well. Once the clock starts ticking, I start getting sweaty, and it's like, oh my god, what am I doing? I have to do this quick. All that pressure, I'm not good at it. I'm not a good standardized test taker. I'm good at writing essays. I'm good at doing projects, but I'm terrible at standardized tests. And so it's not fair to judge kids and then to judge teachers based on a standardized exam. And so that's another thing that really got to me when, like, one of my jobs, I had multiple classes, and of course you get judged in the content area. My kids, and when I got my kids, they were pretty low. And like I said, there's a lot of turnover between schools and teachers, because teachers are just saying, like, the way the system works is not fair and it's not healthy for us, so there's a lot of turnover. So when I got my kids, they were really low in their testing. Most of them were like more than a grade and a half below the grade level that they were supposed to be at. And I knew it had to do a lot because they hadn't had consistency with the teaching. So I'm like, okay, let's work on this. By the end of the school year, all my kids, my classes went up more than a grade. collectively a grade, but most of them were more than a grade, and I was super proud. But even that wasn't enough for the school. Like, this really upset me. I didn't hear it personally from the people that were in charge of doing the test, administering and results analysis and crap, but I heard it through gossip with other coworkers, like, oh yeah, her class did the worst. I'm like, wait, what do you mean my class did the worst? And I was looking for the results because I printed everything and I kept a record of everything. I have it with me, but I moved and everything's in boxes, and I just didn't pull it out. But then I started looking at my records and I'm like, okay, maybe my students scored the lowest, I don't know, like when you compare it to other classes, but collectively they all went up like a grade. So that just proved to me, like, okay, so now I'm being judged, and teaching is being judged against other teachers and other grades, and how well your students are doing compared to these students. Like, my students collectively went up a grade. Like, I got them up a grade. They're maybe not at grade level, but I didn't get them at grade level. Like, I pushed and I got them up this far. Like, what? So that's another thing, like getting judged based on standardized exam and how students do, and comparing one classroom to another classroom and one teacher to another teacher. That's not healthy at all. That's not healthy at all. And then gossiping about it with other teachers, like, that's a lot. That's something that happens a lot in education, a lot of gossiping, and it's so detrimental to the environment and to the community. It's just terrible. So yeah, we have to deal with it. I haven't even started talking about like inside the classroom. I've been talking about the schedule and planning and all the time we have to put in and how we're evaluated. I haven't even started talking about what we have to do inside the classroom. But before I get to what we have to do inside the classroom, there's another thing that we have to deal with, and that's faculty and meetings. We, on top of everything we do, we have to have meetings. And we meet with our peers, other teachers, we meet with our bosses, we meet, faculty level, all the staff meets. And these meetings usually take about an hour or two. They're usually long meetings, and they usually happen about once a month, maybe. I had a job where we had meetings every 2 weeks. There were a lot of those meetings, and those were about an hour and a half long. And I've had places where we meet about once a month, once every 2 months, but still you have to take the time, you have to go to meetings, and it's like other extra work that you have to put in. And it's not like you're meeting during work hours, you're meeting after. So that's your time that you have to put in to be there. So that's another thing. And like I said, we get assessed on standardized exams and on maybe one class evaluation a semester, which isn't really indicative of what's going on in the classroom and what's truly being done in the classroom. Like, if you truly want to know what's going on in the classroom, put a camera in the classroom. Like, I don't have anything against that. Put a camera in the classroom and see what happens in the classroom. And that way you can truly assess the teacher, you can assess the students. You have evidence for the parents when they want to know what's going on in the classroom. That's what your kid was doing. Yeah, your kid was jumping around. That's what was going on. So you have evidence of what actually is going on. Now, when we talk about the classroom, this is like what we have to deal with. If you're lucky, you get a classroom. Some teachers don't have a classroom. They're moving from place to place. But if you're lucky, you get a class and you get to keep all of your things in the classroom. But with a classroom comes great responsibilities. One of the things that you have to keep in mind for your classroom is your classroom has to be decked out, like completely decorated. I had a job where I didn't have a classroom, and I thought I didn't have a set classroom that was mine and I could decorate, and I thought that was a shame. And then I realized, oh my god, how lucky was I that I didn't have a classroom. Because you get a classroom and you have to decorate your classroom. And I'm all for decorating. I love decorating classrooms. I feel like I could be a Pinterest teacher, except for the fact that it's all out of pocket. If you're lucky, your school will give you like $100. But once you're there, like, go to a teacher supply store. $100. Well, it's not enough to decorate a whole classroom. And so you have to decorate the whole class, and you don't keep the same decorations the whole year. You're expected to change, beginning of the school year, fall, Christmas, Valentine's Day, Easter, spring, what else? The end of the school year, summer. You're expected to constantly be changing the students' work and different projects and updating everything. Like, it's a lot that you have to do inside the classroom. And you're not going to do that while you're teaching. So either you get to school early and you do it before school, or you get to school late, or you stay after school and you do it after school, or you take the 1 or 2 hours that you have to plan in school and you do it during those hours. So there's a lot of our own time that we have to put in to keep up with these things. Now, if you think about a big company, companies have everything departmentalized, and they have different people in different departments that take care of every little thing. A teacher is like all departments in one, and you have to take care of everything, and you get paid pennies for it. Like, literally, we get paid pennies for the amount of work that we do. So then we decorate the classroom and we make sure that everything is up to date and everything looks pretty all year round. We have to make sure that the classroom is clean because, yes, there's a janitor, but you don't want to come off as a pig, although I am not... Like, after a whole day in the school, you're like, you see a water bottle on the floor and you're like, yeah, you're good there. But yeah, you want to ensure that the classroom isn't like a complete mess. You have to make sure that you have supplies in your classroom. Students will get upset if they ask you for a piece of paper and you don't have a piece of paper. Students will get upset if they ask you for scissors and you don't have scissors. And you ask parents for supplies. But I understand, as a parent, I understand that you're like, well, I'm already paid an insanely high tuition. If you go to public school and you don't pay tuition, it's like, well, why do I have to contribute so much to the school? But we have 30, 60, 90 students that go through our classrooms every single day for like 40 weeks a year. That's a lot. That's a lot. We run out of supplies. We run out of hand cleanser. We run out of Clorox wipes. We run out of paper. We run out of glue. We run out of supplies. Students use up supplies so fast. And if we truly want to make our classes and lessons engaging, we have to use our supplies, and we just run out of them. So then another thing that we have to keep in mind is that we have to keep our classrooms stocked. And so we have to constantly be like asking for supplies or use our own money to get supplies. So that's another thing that teachers need to keep in mind, like all the things that you need in your classroom that you're going to run out of. And sometimes you're lucky and you get like good parents that they know you need that and they contribute to the class, and like I'm really grateful for those type of parents. And another thing that we have to do in the classroom is the rearranging of desks. So if you want to change things up, you don't want to have the kids sitting the same way the whole year. But if you have a full classroom, that's pretty hard. If you have 30-something students, changing around the dynamics in the classroom, it's not easy. And then that's a whole other thing that you have to stay and plan for. How am I going to sit students? Blah, 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 blah. So, we have to like deal with planning. We have to deal with all the extra hours that we put in to the craft of teaching, like not the actual teaching, but preparing to teach. We have to take into consideration all of the dynamics in the classroom. We have to take into consideration our students, what they like, what they don't like, how they learn, how they do better. And then on top of all of this, we have to deal with the parents. And you would think, okay, dealing with parents is like the easiest part of teaching. They're adults. It's not. It's like mind-blowing, but it's not. Dealing with parents is sometimes even harder than the actual act of teaching. Because when you're dealing with kids, you always keep in mind, well, they're children. They're kids. Like, they're going to behave that way. But when you're dealing with adults, it's like, you're a freaking grown-up. Like, act like a grown-up. And I'm almost 27. I'm not 27 yet, but I'm almost 27. but I know that a lot of parents don't see me as an adult. But newsflash, a lot of your kids' teachers are gonna be younger than me. Like, teachers are getting younger because a lot of older teachers are retiring, and a lot of teachers, when they reach my age, when you're 27, 28, you're reaching 30, you realize I am not going to have this quality of life for the rest of my life, as a career. I'm not going to sacrifice so much sleep and so much of my social life to doing this when I am getting paid pennies for it, and the treatment that I'm getting is horrible. And this is the treatment that I'm going into when I'm talking about parents. Now, there's different kind of parents, and I've had all of these parents, and it's something that upsets me. There is parents that are non-existent. You will not hear from these parents at all. The kid can win student of the year, and the parent is not there. The kid can set the school on fire, and the parent is not there. The parent never answers an email, never picks up the phone. The parent is just not there. Now, that is frustrating, but at least there's no conflict there. It's just a parent that's not there. It's not that the parent has anything against you. It's just that the parent is not there. The child's education is not their concern. That's it. And you have to deal with those parents, and you have to make sure that you deal with the kids and you address everything with the kids, because you know that the parent is never going to be there. The other type of parent that we get, it's a parent that ignores you. And I've had these types of parents, and they're a freaking nightmare, because these are the type of parents that they will answer emails when you send them to multiple people. They go to school activities. They meet with other teachers. But then when you send them a personal email, they ignore it. And then you hear from the kids that the parent got the email. And you hear from the kids, oh, my parent heard that I did this and that in school and blah, 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 blah. And here you are sitting in your desk like, well, why the hell didn't the parent answer me? And the parent is straight up ignoring you. And it's really tough when you come in contact with a parent that doesn't like you and ignores you like that, because they're transferring that to the kid. And now the kid is like, well, if my parent ignores the teacher, I can ignore the teacher. This teacher isn't important. So now we have to deal with that type of attitude going on at home, and we have to address it in the classroom. And on top of teaching and everything, we have to deal with this behavioral situation. We also get, and I've gotten, this type of parent is also very annoying, the type of parent that is always there. And these are the parents that, I don't know if they just don't work, but they are always like at a school event, activity, in the school during the day, doing things, walking around the halls. And it's good that they're there and they're involved and the kid sees the parent involved. But I've had interactions with these type of parents where they try to tell me what's better for my classroom, what's like a better activity, what's a better project, and you're like, no, hold up. You might have all the free time in the world to be roaming the halls of the school, but you're not in my classroom. You don't know what's going on in my classroom. Yet they believe that they know everything that's going on because they're always there and they see like interactions, but they're not really in the classroom. And it's kind of upsetting when they think that they can control what's going inside the classroom, and they're going to intimidate you because we're outside watching what you're doing. But it's kind of good that they're really involved in the kids' life and education. I also had parents that were a dream. They were just the ideal parents. The parent that every teacher wants to have. Like, when you contact them, they respond. You have no idea if that parent likes you or dislikes you, because they are respectful. They are adults about everything. They treat you with respect. They're kind. They respond when they have to respond. They take care of the issues with the kids when they have to take care of them. They help out in the classroom. If they have to volunteer, they volunteer. They do extra work. So it's the type of parent that's really hands-on. They're there to support you. They deal with the kids when they have to, and it's just a good parent to interact with. Now, these are like the type of parents that I had to deal with as a teacher, and I was pretty comfortable dealing with all of them. Some of them get a little bit annoying, but I was pretty good. But then we have the type of parents, and I can't stand these type of parents, and it's the parents that are babies. They act like children. They don't behave like adults. And you're put, like, whenever I faced these parents, I was put in the very uncomfortable position of, am I going to treat you like an adult because you're not acting like one and you're not treating me like one? Or am I going to act like a child, which is what you're acting like? And am I going to step down to your level and then treat you like that? Because apparently that's the only way you react, you respond. And that type of parent is really harsh when you have to deal with a parent that acts like a child, because they're proving to you that they're not in the capacity of raising a child. So these are the children that usually have a lot of behavior issues, and they're very disrespectful and they're very rude. But apple tree, it's really, really tough. And so so this is a lot of like what I went through as a teacher. It got to a point where dealing with all the parents, dealing with all the planning and differentiated learning, dealing with all the other things that we bring into that take up like 6 hours a day from what we had to do. I wasn't having any personal life. I wasn't enjoying my life. I stopped enjoying my job. And, I made the decision. Teaching is not for me. And I just stopped. I said, I'm not going to do teaching anymore. I don't want to be in the classroom. I don't want to have this quality of life. So I transitioned and I went into the nonprofit administrative kind of work, so I don't have to be in the classroom, because I can't, like, to the people that are still out there teaching, you are so brave. And you have like all my respect, because it is not easy to do that. And if you notice, I never spoke about the kids, because we teach for the kids, but like I never thought the kids were an issue. Like, children are children, and we train and we go to school for that, but there is so much more that is thrown on teachers that it weighs us down so much that you like lose all the will to stand in front of the classroom and teach. And I mean, for what we get paid, it's not worth it. Like, it's not worth it at all. So yeah, that's why I stopped teaching. Basically like why I quit the classroom. I'm gonna do another video, which I'm probably just gonna film right after this one, because I think this video is going to be too long. I'm gonna have to edit it. So I'm gonna do another video, and so I just realized, actually, I just realized that I'm just giving like an outline of what's thrown on teachers, but I never gave you like any concrete examples, and I didn't want to do that. So I guess this is turning into a 2-part video. And so this is the video where I just explained, I guess, everything that's thrown on teachers that make us want to quit, kind of like take the will out of teaching out of us. In the next video, I'm gonna actually give you examples of like shitty things that happen related to planning and the schedule, and faculty meetings related to the classroom and supplies, and related to the parents that actually made me quit teaching. So yeah, if you like the video, subscribe, And if you don't subscribe, come back, because I am going to upload the next video with actual examples of things that happened to me while I was teaching that were kind of crazy. So until next time,